here's all the people I won't be able to serve if I keep playing small. So not just what does it cost me, but what is it costing the people around you and even the people down the road that you haven't even met yet because you are too stuck and too afraid to just step out into the light a little bit.
Hi everyone, I'm Kirsten Davidson, your host and creator of my wellness podcast, Mind the Gaps, where we work on surrendering our typical ways of looking at life to step out of our comfort zone and into our growth zone. Welcome to episode number 25, Peaceful Prosperity, where I'm joined by Oliver Manalese. Oliver is a transformation coach and spiritual guide to high achievers. He's the author of The Daily Prosperity Method, a book that helps readers expand their capacity by owning the day. Since 2012, Oliver's been helping high achievers and businesses create peaceful prosperity in their lives within his private coaching practice. By working with Oliver, clients can learn how to end their inner conflict, do good with their gifts, and live unapologetically. Oliver's helped his highest achieving clients multiply their income by 2.6 times while working 80% less and becoming the clearest, calmest, and most confident versions of themselves. Besides the 3 days a week Oliver spends working on his next book or helping clients unlock their greatest potential, he loves slow mornings, pour-over coffees, walks by the water, lifting weights and practicing yoga, and beautifying life with his wife, Janet. He enjoys singing and strumming the guitar, deepening his spiritual life, and rereading works of timeless wisdom. To purchase a copy of Oliver's book, The Daily Prosperity Method, which I highly recommend doing, you can visit his website at olivermanalese.com. That's olivermanalese.com. You can also visit this website to book a call or look at becoming one of his clients. You can also find Oliver on LinkedIn and Instagram at Oliver Manalese. So I met Oliver almost exactly a year ago in March 2024 at a local breathwork class where we were introduced by Samantha Gladish, who was the breathwork facilitator and also who became the very first podcast guest on Mind the Gaps. As Oliver and I started chatting and getting to know each other, we realized we had a lot in common as far as what we bring to the table as professionals and also in our personal lives. So I'm very excited to introduce him today and to dive into what it means to live a life that is peacefully prosperous. For all things Mind the Gaps, you can find me on Instagram at kirsten.davidson in addition to my new website, mindthegaps.co. If you like what you hear today, taking a moment to rate and review the podcast episode is always greatly appreciated. We couldn't do this without your support, so thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, Oliver. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. It's an honor. I'm very, very delighted to be here with you. First of all, congrats on your private practice.
Thank you.
That is so exciting.
Thanks so much.
And it's nerve-wracking too, right? Like, because I feel like that's such a courageous and bold move to make.
Thank you.
So I acknowledge you and I applaud you for that. I feel, I can resonate with you in a lot of ways there. And I'm grateful to be here with you,
Yeah, I'm so grateful you're here.
I'm very honored. It's like you're meeting you, getting to hang out with you a little bit and learning about you. And I feel like there's a lot of parallels. I can totally connect with, many aspects of your journey. I resonate with it.
I am really curious what some of those parallels are.
Yeah, I think, to hear your story about like when you're 6 years old and you just had like these notes that just really connected with the fact that someday you're going to be working with the mind or like you're going to be working with people in that capacity. And just to be able to draw that line into the present moment, I think that's really magical.
No, thank you. It was like a psychological analysis for this imaginary person. And that was way before I even knew what a therapist was, but I made this chart of this character called Bob, and I wrote out his feelings and I rated them on a scale, and I wrote comments, and I actually put it on my website. It's pretty funny, but I have no memory of doing that.
That's wild. Like there's something inside of you from a very, very young age that has been fostered and developed, and kind of like maybe it helped shape your decisions as you grew up. Mm-hmm. And part of what led you here. Because like for me, what was so interesting, I think I had my own experiences of being exposed to the possibility of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. At a young age, where I didn't have any examples of that, like directly connected to me within my family, within my circle. And then when I finally did, I was maybe in like grade 5 or grade 6. And I'm like, whoa, you can do that? Oh my goodness. And it was just my friend's dad who ran businesses, had employees, and invested in real estate and had these rental properties. And there was something about hearing that and seeing that possibility open up, just like something clicked for me at such a young age. And I remember, like for me personally, I forgot about all of that for many, many years. I think in high school, I went to a high school where I didn't know anybody. Like, so everyone that I went to elementary school with went to one high school. My family moved to a new part of Mississauga. And so I went to a high school where I knew nobody. So I wonder if a major part of it was trying to get established and make friends and find my own circle and kind of get my bearings in this new crowd of people and girls and like school. And there's all these different things that maybe kind of got in the way of that original dream as a child. I talk about this also in like the opening of my book. I had already started my business in my 20s. And I met up with an old friend of mine who knew me from those younger years. And she said, that's so cool that you're doing what you said you would do when we were kids. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I literally like had amnesia. I didn't even know what she was saying. And she said, no, like we were in grade 8. And when we were talking about like, what are you going to do when you get older? And you were talking about like having a bunch of real estate, being in commercial real estate, having your own business and being an entrepreneur and doing all these things. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't think I have ever thought about that since I said that.
Wow.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I kind of like lost touch with that part of myself, probably trying to find my tribe and trying to, be accepted and trying to do all of the things that you do as a teenager to try to find yourself and grow up. And I had many dreams. Like I was in music. I was in the school plays. Like I wrote music. I played guitar. I was very interested in politics. I was in student council. And so I think the vast number of interests that I had, like none of that was the entrepreneurial dreams was not even expressed. Like, and even not even in university, like getting into university for political science. I wasn't even thinking about business or entrepreneurship at that point until I kind of like woke up. But to hear this, it just kind of reaffirmed for me of just like, wow, this has been in me for a long time. And as soon as she reminded me of that, I'm like, whoa, that's why it feels like so at home in a way.
Yeah, I like that feeling at home.
I've been coaching for over 12 years now, and I keep coming back to this idea of personal transformation that, that's kind of like really what this work is and has been. But for the last number of years, I've started to recognize that I don't know if it's really transformation, like becoming something different or someone new. So much of it actually is remembering. Like remembering who you actually are, who you are underneath, and being more of that. And also being reminded over and over again of the things that matter to us. Like I've had clients who spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy to do this self-inquiry work, to get to know themselves and to get connected with their purpose and find out what's the highest good that they can do with their gifts and all of these things. It takes time, energy, money, and they kind of get going on that path, and it can be really exciting, and maybe some results start to happen, and it's a very beautiful process. And then obviously there's obstacles, there's transitional periods, there's things you got to let go of, and it gets difficult. And maybe just through time wears on us, and we start to lose touch with all of that. And the cycle is just like, oh, I guess I got to start from scratch, and I got to rethink my whole life and what's my purpose and why am I here? It's like, hold on a second, like slow down. You being in a tough spot, like it doesn't invalidate all of the self-discovery that you've done. What your core values are, what your purpose is, what your mission is, what your gifts are, who you're here to serve, how you're here to serve. I'm like, I have yet to see that really make huge leaps and huge changes. Like I'll have clients go through these incredible processes over like a year sometimes, and sometimes more than that. And I'll often circle back and I'll say, do you remember saying this? And I'll quote, this is what you said. You don't want to be in this business anymore, and you would rather be doing this. And this is where you see yourself. And they'll be blown away because that's what they're living now, but they don't remember that that's what they wanted a year ago. They don't even remember that they had access to that language a year ago. It's like, no, the seeds and the signs of who you're becoming and like where your life is headed, it's always there. But I think because we're living in our own body and our own perspective, we very easily lose touch with it, or we invalidate it for so many reasons. Oh, me? No, I can't do that. There's no way. I can't do that. And so I've been thinking more like this is a remembering process, like remembering why we are here.
I like that instead of transforming, like taking a new shape, you're uncovering what's already inside of you and looking inward. And that language I use all the time. Let's look inward and access all of the things that we already have inside of us, tools that we've built up, tools that we can rediscover, remember, like you're saying. And I heard an analogy, looking at ourselves as marble carvings. So the person that's creating the statue, us, the statue exists already inside of that block. It doesn't come from somewhere else. So anytime we're chipping away at the block, we're getting closer and closer to our true self. And I loved it. I'm like, that's the perfect way to describe that. Sometimes we forget the work we've done to access our true self.
Yeah, I believe that is the Michelangelo story about David.
Yes, okay.
Statue, where he was asked, like, how did you do this incredible piece, this beautiful, statue of David out of this marble block? And it was anything that wasn't David, just removed it.
Right.
That's kind of cool, right? I think
I love that.
I feel like as human beings, we pick stuff up. Like we got to put a mask on. We have to put a shield on. We got to put some armor on. You probably know about that, like more than most people. And then as you go through the process of just living and trying to become more yourself and more authentic, it's like, wait, what isn't me anymore? Like, what can I put down and let go? What mask do I no longer need to wear? Which is such an interesting, like, and perfect analogy for this process, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Whatever isn't David, we get rid of, which is essentially what we're trying to do in our work, both of us in different ways, like asking our clients, what doesn't feel like you? What isn't yours to be holding on to? What are the layers you can shed so that you're more in touch with yourself? And then when you're more in touch with yourself, you're lighter. There's no baggage, right? You can make decisions that are based on the authentic version of you and not the block version of you.
Less pretty.
Much less pretty. Yeah, exactly. Which leads nicely into my first official question for you, which is, can you explain to us what your work as a transformational coach and spiritual guide looks like in practice?
I really feel like ultimately it comes down to the people who are drawn to work with me and the people who I love working with the most seem to be at war with themselves. Mm. And so they're high achievers typically, and they've done well. And for some reason, there's so much inner conflict. There's like this inner dialogue of just negative and toxic. But if you contrast that with what's happening on the outside world, they might be doing really well on paper. Mm-hmm. And they might check off a whole bunch of boxes. Like spouse, kids, house, successful, business, real estate, doing well on paper. Friends saying, you're killing it. Like, wow, amazing. Mm-hmm. But they walk around deep inside of just like, I'm only at like second gear right now. I'm not even tapping in. I'm not even dialed in. Like, I'm not even using my gifts. Like, this is, I feel like I'm wasting my skills. So like when that is contrasted, and they butt up against, those two worlds kind of butt up against one another. There's such a dissonance that happens where like irritability can build up, and even resentment can build up, and even like anger, like bursts of anger can show up, which makes it even worse, like, and I think it's very difficult to admit some of those things of just like snapping or just like having just these outbursts in a way that are so out of character. But then that feeds the cycle as well of just like, oh my God, I was not like me. That's not like me. Mm-hmm. That was so out of character. And because that was out of character, I'm going to push that down even more. And I'm going to pretend that I'm grateful even more and try to look great and charismatic and put a smile on. And so it just perpetuates itself, this inner war. And like, I really feel for those people because, these are fathers, these are wives, these are husbands, these are business owners, these are self-employed, these are high performers, these are people with gifts, people who are being of service, people who help others, A lot of them are here to help people with their gifts, the people that I work with. And so to have that kind of happening underneath the surface, like, I know what that's like. Mm-hmm. And so part of my job or part of the work that we do is to first clean up some of those messes, to untangle some of those messes that are happening underneath.
Right.
To just free up bandwidth, because it's just like every day you got to do very difficult things. Doesn't matter what job or what business or what line of work that you are in. The day is filled with doing hard things, and you're only you're capped based on how much bandwidth and mental energy you have. If all that mental energy is being used up with this inner battle that you have going on with yourself, like, really, how are you going to move forward? Like, how are you going to do more good with your gifts? And so that's kind of like the front end of the work that I do with people, is to just like help clear up some space, to help clear up some space. Kind of, I guess, very similar to that analogy, right? To let go and release the things that are not you, that don't serve you, to clean up messes so that they're just off of your plate, they're out of the way, so that you feel lighter, you feel more liberated, you feel more free. And somehow, because of that, there's just this clarity, there's a calmness that people are able to tap into, where it's like, man, we know, like, when we get back to that place of calm and clear and confident, we can make decisions. Mm-hmm. We can execute. We can take the steps. All it is that there's stuff that's in the way, whether it's other people's noise or it's our own noise. Mm-hmm. So the transformational process is to really end that war within, so we can do more good with our day, with our gifts. And ultimately, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, to reconnect, to reconnect to that place inside of us of just like, oh, there I am. Like he's been there, she's been there this whole time, but I've had all this kind of nonsense in the way. Like, oh my gosh, all right. I'm like, it's just free within my own being,
And you use the term high achievers a lot in your work, I noticed. And I like that you're describing the people who are coming to you as individuals who outwardly on paper have it all or have a lot. And yet internally they're struggling. And I wonder too, if you notice that these people are feeling guilty when they're feeling disconnected from their own life, because from the outside, well, shouldn't I be happy? I have it all.
Yeah, I call that, feigned gratitude. And I understand like the value of being optimistic and things like this. But typically in my experience, as a person who does this, as a regular human being who does this, and also as a coach and a guide who sees it a lot, and I'm sure you probably can acknowledge this as well, anytime I'm trying to think positively is because like my life or my mind is in the gutter. I'm in a dark place. I'm in a low place. No, Oliver, think positively. Like, think positively. And what that does, in my opinion, and in my experience, is that it just reinforces the source of why I'm trying to think positively anyways. It cements into my being the fact that I'm not in a good place. And so when it comes to that guilt or that like kind of feigned gratitude, like I should be, I feel like anytime we have that feeling, like it's like, shouldn't I be happy? Other people would love to be in my shoes. And we have to like force ourselves to get to that place. I think we need to, like, if you resonate with what you're hearing in this conversation, just consider that potentially like maybe that's a symptom, like maybe that's an indicator that something is missing.
Yes, I love that. Looking at emotions as teachers is really the only way that we can move through them, because I like what you're saying, if we're not paying attention to them, they're just going to come up stronger later. And when we look at them and say, okay, what are you trying to tell me about my own life? Let's forget, this idea of like it's a first world problem, other people have it worse, this isn't a big deal. All we're doing is invalidating the feeling, and then it's going to keep coming up instead of saying like, why am I feeling like this right now? Maybe there's something that's misaligned in my life.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, or maybe you didn't eat the right thing this morning and you're just feeling
I like that too.
Maybe you didn't.
That simple.
It could be that you didn't sleep enough last night and you're just grumpy today because we all need to sleep. But if it's persistent, I think that's kind of where I would take note of just like, if I keep getting back to the place of just like, shouldn't you be more, you should be more grateful. Why aren't you grateful? But you can't force yourself into an emotion.
No, exactly.
And so it's just like, well, what am I actually feeling? If I should be grateful, if I should be appreciative, what am I really feeling? And if we tap into that, and if it's guilt, like you were saying, or sometimes I hear like resentment, but a lot of times it's, if we go deeper, like I have this exercise, and I'm actually blown away sometimes realizing just how much I've used it and recommended it, and clients have gone through it. And like, for instance, a gentleman started working with me about a year ago, beautiful human being, and has just gone through so much, his wife, he lost his wife. He was in a very challenging position, and there's things that happened in his past as well. And he had just self-helped himself to a corner of misery. Like, literally, like, I'm reading all the books, Oliver, I'm listening to all the podcasts, and it's actually making it worse. Like, this self-help stuff is making it worse. Because it was masking. It was like, well, I'm doing the mindset shifting, and I'm doing the like beat my chest and like feel better and all this stuff, and it's actually making me worse. And so, the first part of one of the first phases is really ending the war within, and like we were talking about earlier. But this exercise that I recommended, I said, would you say there's anger underneath you? Like, is there an FU under there somewhere? And I feel like sometimes anger is ugly or it's shameful, but in some ways anger could be sacred. Anger could be an authentic and genuine emotional experience that needs to be looked at. Like, it needs to be acknowledged. Just like as human beings, we all have a craving to be seen and heard and understood. Our emotions also need that too. And so I said, is there an FU under there? And sometimes it's an FU to yourself or someone who hurt you or a parent. It could even be an FU to God. And so like sometimes we could even get blocked with like, oh, but my parents did the best and I can't be angry at God. And like we have such weird rules that we place on what we can feel and what we should feel. But it's like, if you are genuinely angry with God or with a parent or some other person, I'm like, you got to write an FU letter. Not like you're going to send it to them. Not like you're trying to get back at them, but you just need to let your emotions be kind of seen. That you need to physically write these things down. And he came and he filled like a quarter of his journal. And the next time I saw him, he was like, I can't say like he was a different person, but he was noticeably lighter. It was a dramatic shift for him. He's just like, I didn't realize, these were his words. He's like, I didn't realize I had this dog on such a tight leash and clenching, like just with a fist, this leash, like treating this part of me like it was my enemy, like it was working against me, when really it just needed to be acknowledged, And it's almost like there's this freedom he was able to have, rather than say, oh, here's an ugly part of myself. Here's a bad part of myself, this emotion, this feeling, this story, this wound. I don't want anyone to see that. There's an ugliness inside of me. I don't want anyone. I don't even want to see it. But when he actually let it out, it was almost like he was able to be more whole with it, like include it as part of his path. It's like, oh, this is actually, the dog can just like walk beside me. I don't have to be like yanking its and like holding on to it so tightly. And so I think really when it comes to like, how do we feel? Are we feeling guilty? Are we, I think there's a lot going on underneath the surface. Most people that I work with are business people. In one respect, a lot of self-employed, a lot of entrepreneurs. And I'm always like, let's make sure let's make sure your business problem is not actually a personal problem or a spiritual problem, or a life problem that's just manifesting in your business. Because they might be like, okay, what's the next tool? What's the next, which is an aspect of the work I do. Like, what's the next strategy? What should I do? What direction should I take my business, and what needs to change? And like you were saying earlier, right? Like, let's not look at the external. Let's look at the internal. Like, what is that just like a secondary byproduct of?
I think it's really cool that essentially what you're doing is parts work. So in my job, there's a theory called internal family systems theory. Psychotherapist Richard Schwartz came up with this, and in a nutshell, it conceptualizes all these different emotions and like versions of ourselves as a little family that exists within us. I like to reference Inside Out.
I was just thinking that. I love that.
Yeah. And that there's different parts. And he has a book called No Bad Parts. That there are no parts of us that are inherently bad. They're trying to do their best. A lot of them are just misinformed and, they're trying to protect us, but in ways that actually end up hurting us. So relating to those parts, becoming friends with those parts, and then reintegrating them into our lives, like the way that client did with the quote unquote dog, being, walking beside him. That's the new version of that dog rather than being held on a tight leash. So I always find it so interesting how these different theories show up in all different areas of this type of work.
Oh yeah, no, I really love that. We do. I think we do have that little family inside of us that just needs. We need to find harmony.
Yeah.
With those parts of ourselves, and I love that.
And when you talk about the war within with these clients, it sounds like it's these parts that are at odds with each other. So you're saying that, writing that FU letter, which I love, by the way, is one of those strategies for helping them move through that war within. Do you have some other strategies that help them work through that war?
Yeah, and feel free to use it as well. Like, this is not,
thanks.
Take it. I think it's simple. Just like write it. And sometimes I tell people to ceremonially burn it afterwards, and to have that ceremony tattooed in their mind, that anytime that it shows up again, that you can connect with that moment of just like, no, remember, you saw it, you felt it, you acknowledged it, and you let it go. There's like a full circle process of being able to feel just like a completion. And I don't think we're ever just done with things. Sometimes we just have to recommit. We have to let go and let go and let go over and over and over. I think it's a beautiful process. One of the most common things that people have said to me is like, you helped me untangle the mess. And what's so cool is that only a few years ago, I found out what my last name meant, Manalese. And I never thought about what it meant. Like, I don't know why. It took me over 30 plus years.
Oh, yeah.
But in the language of where I come from, where my family is from in Philippines, it's a place called Pampanga. And they have their own language called Pampangan. And the last name, Manalese, means to put back in order.
Yeah, talk about being in alignment.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So to put back in order, and so to untangle the mess, I think one of the simplest things we could do is to write down all of the messes. Just like, what are all the messes in my life? What are all the open loops in my life? What are all the things that I have left undone that I need to clean up, that I need to get off my list? Like, what are all those things? And just get them all out. Because there's something about pen and paper physically writing it out and then imprisoning it, freezing it on paper and seeing it from the outside in versus us thinking about these things, and we're carrying it energetically. It's in our nervous system. It's in our mind. Like, we think about it over and over and over again. But when you have it on paper, just like, sometimes just doing that, you're like, wow, I feel free. I feel lighter. Just I can see what I'm dealing with. And then really just starting to, for me, so I'm also a yoga teacher. And so that whole philosophy is there's so much value in the Eastern philosophies. And yin and yang is a very simple symbol to help us understand it, where if you imagine yin is the energy that is very chaotic, filled with potential and possibility, and the yang energy is very directed, very purposeful. It's like a container. So, and the yin is very expansive. So these two energies, they complement one another. And life
one is masculine and one is feminine, right? In traditional terms.
Yeah, the understanding would be the yin energy would be more feminine, like expansive, and the yang energy would be more masculine, like a container, right?
Interesting.
And when you're overwhelmed, when you're paralyzed, that means typically, using this symbol, you have too much yin energy. Sure, you have all the choices, you have all the options, anything can happen, but that's so much that you're just stuck. So typically you need an ounce, you need like a dose of yang energy. Like, you got to take control of a tiny thing just to get to a place of like, oh, I took ownership of something really small. Whereas the flip side of it is, if everything is so regimented and so strict and is so orderly that you're bored, that's too much yang energy. You need a dose of yin energy, a little chaos, a little innovation, a little like change up the routine a little bit, just to get yourself out of the pattern. Because we're meant to dance between both energies, And so this is like, you take all the things, all the messes, and you start with the smallest possible thing you can clean up. What's a doable, winnable, achievable thing I can move forward or just completely clean up today? Like, it could be simple. Like, do you need to clean your car? Do you need to clean your office? Do you need to, shred documents? Do you need to, like, it could be so basic. I remember I had one client who was very much struggling with just like having so much pressure, like work and school and family obligations and all of these things. And he said, I did what you said, Oliver. I finally cleaned my car. I had all these old Tim Hortons cups, and I had like gym clothes, and I had all these papers and like wrappers from like stuff that I had from weeks ago, and it's finally clean, every inch of it. And I just feel so much better. I feel so much lighter. And that's kind of like, it seems so mundane and practical, but like our environments really affect us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say that's a simple and practical thing that we could all do, because it really comes down to taking ownership. There's aspects of our life that we've been avoiding taking ownership of, and they've been piling up, and it's been weighing on us, and it's leaking a lot of our mental energy. All that, which to me is our most valuable resource. You're leaking it on all these different things, and cleaning it up frees up more of that mental attention, and you can be more present for your family, for your loved ones, for your projects, for the people you work with, for the things that actually matter to you. You can be fully focused, fully present, because you're clear of all of the nonsense.
And is that the goal, you'd say, of most of your clients? Is that something that they verbalize to you, that they want to be more present, or that they'd like to have a better work-life balance, feel less chaotic?
Yeah, calmness, like getting to a place of calmness and clarity is typically it's always a good place to get to, and a good place to be. Because I think anyone who lives like nowadays knows that like our minds are so fragmented, and we're constantly being pulled into multiple directions of just like different marketing messages and different advertising, and like we're just inundated, we're bombarded with so much. And I think we really need to protect that resource, because I feel like it's ultimately, I want people to get to a place of peace, to go from a place of inner war to inner peace. Because I feel like from that place of inner peace and presence, you're just more yourself. You make choices from a more grounded and rooted place.
Absolutely. And I like how you're saying, clean up the messes, like make that list of mess and then start with the smallest one, and how oftentimes the smallest one will be a literal physical mess, like the one in your car. I'm guilty of that. My car gets kind of messy.
Yeah. It's so basic.
Oh yeah. And I did take time to clean it. And then I truly, it sounds so silly, but like that guy said, like it changed my week. I was like, wow, I'm getting into the car. I might feel put together that day, but if my environment's messy, all of a sudden I don't feel as together. And then it's harder for me to think, right? So, clean space, clean mind, environmental self-care is huge.
Oh, I've never heard it put that way. That's really good. Yeah. That is an extension of ourself, our environment, and we need to care for it. That's so good.
Yeah, environmental self-care, I think, is something that gets neglected. So I think, like, right away when you said that stood out. Like, start with the smallest thing, and oftentimes the smallest thing actually has way more weight than we think it does. Like, we'll think, oh, it's just my car, like, whatever. But give it a try and then see how you feel.
I think we just called a whole bunch of people out who are listening to this in their cars. They're looking around. They're like, oh my gosh.
Well, you know what? I am one of those people, so I'm calling myself out right now. But I'm what I was going to say earlier is that I noticed that you use the word maximizing your day and time and taking full advantage of the time that we have by freeing up mental energy for things that actually matter. And I saw that when I was looking into your book, The Daily Prosperity Method. So I thought maybe you could share with us some of your favorite nuggets of wisdom from that book, and maybe even explain what is the prosperity method to you.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. For anyone who's at all wanting more out of life, I think you start to realize that there are some deeper questions to ask. Big questions. And, in my opinion, I call it these are kind of like the 4 walls of our being. And it's very basic, like, who am I / who do I want to be? Mm-hmm. What do I want to do? Who do I want to be with? And where do I want to be? I feel like if more than one of those things is missing, we can feel a little bit off. Like, if I don't feel at home where I am, and I also don't know who I want to be with, like whether that's a romantic partner or a tribe, that can feel destabilizing. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, do I need to move? And like, where are my people? And it can feel, if you take one more of those things away, like, what am I doing with my life? Mm-hmm. What do I do with my gifts? All of a sudden, you're floating in the abyss, and it's very difficult to be with these types of questions. So as simple as those questions can sound, they're so profound, they're so existential.
Absolutely.
And it really determines the direction of our path, right? The direction of our life. But how do you ask those questions if you don't have mental energy? Mm-hmm. If you're burnt out and you're exhausted and you're overwhelmed and you're at war with yourself and you're angry, how do you expect yourself to approach any of these deep questions? Mm-hmm. Let alone, like, what is my purpose and what are my gifts and who am I here? What kind of impact am I here to make on this planet?
Well, and what would you say to the person that says, I don't have the luxury to live my purpose, or like, I don't have time for that? Looking at that type of alignment with those 4 walls as a luxury, how would you respond to that?
Well, I call them the 4 walls because they're foundational. Mm-hmm. It's like, think of the room that you're in, the house that you are in, remove one of the walls.
Yeah. That's not a luxury. It's a necessity.
It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's what makes you feel grounded. Mm-hmm. And I mean, sometimes we need to get to a place where we recommit and re-choose. Yes, this is who I am. Like, yeah, that is me. We remember, but sometimes we just lose touch, or we have like things that are just temporary. The work that we're doing is kind of just a placeholder. Like, we're not fully in. Like, I can't really give myself to my work because I know that I'm going to be out. Because I know I'm transient. And then 10 years go by. It's like, I thought I was transient. I thought I was going to quit. I was going to quit this career. This is not a ladder that I wanted to climb. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I think we have things that we do that we learn to tolerate, that we learn to settle for. And I understand that it's a luxury in the sense of, like, if you're struggling from a place of like survival, then yeah, you can ask these questions.
Yeah.
There's parts of the world and there's times in our family ancestry. If you look 1 generation, 2 generations, three generations back for my family or your family, they couldn't ask themselves this question. They were like, there's no plumbing. You got to go outside to an outhouse to the bathroom. You have, like, there's no electricity. Like, there's lack, Mm-hmm. So you can't ask. Yeah, you can't really ask yourself, like, where do I want to live? Like, what do you mean? Like, you can't ask that question. Everyone that you know is here, and if you're away from the people that you know, that means, like, that's the end of your survival. I mean, things evolve. Like, my family left their country of origin, Philippines, not knowing English, maybe knowing a little bit, but they left everyone and everything that they know. And so that's huge. That's bold. But they got to a point where they're like, we need to do that. And And I wonder if some of us who are listening to this right now are at that place themselves of just like, oh, wait, I actually do need to move and be somewhere where I will thrive. It's like, I remember learning how palm trees, I was so curious about palm trees and learning that there's only one native palm tree in California. All of them are imported from other places, other tropical places.
No way.
And to me, that's a representation of just like, if you put the seed and the plant in the right environment, it will thrive.
Mm-hmm.
If you're putting it in the wrong environment, if you plant a palm tree outside in the summer in Canada, it might thrive for a season. But by the time winter rolls around, sayonara. Like, that's gone. It's the wrong environment to be in. And I think people are like that as well. You plug yourself into the right place, the right atmosphere, where the type of opportunities or the type of exposure, the type of nature, the type of activities that you want to be around, that might awaken parts of you, right? Like like that little family inside of you. Maybe you wake up new parts because you're in a new place.
Yeah.
So I do think, it is a luxury in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what it sounds like is if we have the financial, physical, geographical means of some sort to be able to make the change, then it isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. But if we don't have those opportunities, like if we have lost certain freedoms or we don't have the financial ability, then those things aren't options. But otherwise, like you gave the example with your parents, they made that choice. They looked at that bigger existential question and said, this isn't the environment.
Yeah, maybe it's better over here. Like maybe that's where the opportunity is. Like that's where people have been migrating throughout, all of human existence because of opportunity, right? Whether it's for like where the food is or where the money is or where the safest place to raise a family, fill in the blank. And I think also sometimes it's exposure, right? Like think of like if we don't get an opportunity to be exposed to certain ideas or possibilities, we won't know it's an option. Like some people don't know that breath work is an option.
Right.
Right? Like where you and I met. Some people don't know that therapy is an option. How many people do you meet? It's like, oh, I've never thought I'd do this. I never knew what this was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do you get men who are like that? Who are just like, in my experience, I feel like, I'm going to make a generalization. I feel like women are so humble and ready to do work of just like, hey, I think something is missing and outside feedback would be valuable. And I'm going to take action on it. Amazing. Like, call me out. Great. Men, on the other hand, I feel like, again, this is a generalization. Of course, every individual is very different. I feel like men, it takes time. It takes time to get to a place of just like, yeah, I can't DIY this part of my journey anymore. I can't like YouTube fix it. I can't read books and podcasts. Like I feel like getting to that place is very difficult because men are so used to doing it themselves and carrying it themselves. And also part of us not wanting to let other people in to see as well, to see us, like really see us. I'm noticing a little bit of a shift, but I was curious, like how's your practice in terms of that composition and that characteristic?
Yeah, no, that's a great observation, and it's one that's supported by evidence that men have a harder time asking for help in general. And so that is definitely going to be reflected in the work that I do and the work that you do on how defensive is someone to start, how willing is someone to say, like you said, I can't DIY this. That's hilarious. I love that. It's like the idea that I don't need to ask for help. That's weakness. That's not being empowered, right? It's weak to show feelings. But I have to say that there's also a lot of women that struggle with that too. And so
for sure.
Looking at, but you're right. You're right on the money with the whole asking for help in the initial kind of breakthrough. There seems to be more of a defensiveness like people coming to me and say, like men coming to me and saying, I don't know about this whole therapy thing, but we'll see. And then now, I've been seeing them for years. So I think there's a bit more of like a skepticism, but then once there's the breakthrough, it's like, oh, okay, now we can really do the work. But that definitely speaks to more societal messaging, right, towards men versus women. But that's interesting. That also, leads me to ask you about the energy work you do in your spiritual training and in your coaching. What does that presence of energy look like, and how do you hold space for that in your work with your clients?
Yeah, good question. Our mental energy is the most valuable resource that we have. Mm-hmm. And we are the number one asset. So this is all in my book, The Daily Prosperity Method. Mm-hmm. And I think we don't prioritize ourselves. I think overall, I guess, the people that I work with, they put everyone and everything else above them and get to a place of just like, well, who's going to take care of me? Who's going to support me? I'm the one supporting, showing up, holding space for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, and then they collapse because they haven't, number one, treated themselves like they're their number one asset. And number two, they haven't protected their most valuable resource, which is their energy. And so to me, it's like, yeah, there's one part where it's like, you got to get rid of the leaks, like clean up the mess, like we talked about, untangle the mess, end the war, bring some peace. So the leaks, you get rid of the leaks. But then there's also, how do you cultivate and expand that energy? Right. So we all have different sources of energy, things that help us feel like we have we're a bigger container for life. Like we can hold more of our potential. And some of them are really practical, right? Like literally just sleeping.
Yeah.
Like if a client isn't sleeping, it's like, okay, we can't do any of this. You got to sleep first. And we can't do any of this other work until you're sleeping. Like this is just like, what are we doing? So
yeah, that's one of the questions I ask in my intake is what's your sleep hygiene like and exercise? And some people have their tail between their legs when I ask that question, and or also asking about like substance use, and not to go on a tangent with all that, but to just also, and I don't know if I'm sure you do this too, to ask them to do themselves the service of being radically honest in their answers, that we're not their family doctor. They're not going to get in trouble if they tell us how much they're sleeping or drinking or eating. Like we need to know, and they need to know, and be 100% honest with themselves.
Yeah.
On what are they working with? Like what's their baseline right now?
Let me get the red Sharpie out.
Yeah, like no. You crossed like Health Canada's boundaries, so you're in trouble now.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that. I think we grow up with this relationship with like a student teacher, trying to impress the teacher, look how much work I did or whatever. And then also with the doctors, like I'm afraid of going to the dentist and the doctor and what they're going to tell me. And, but yeah, this it's a very different type of relationship that we get to have, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we all know, like we all know this is all basic stuff. We need to sleep. You need to be in nature. You need to drink water. You need to eat unprocessed foods. So there's some practical things like that. You need to be journaling or doing morning pages, praying and meditating. You need to be around people that you love. You need to move your body, right? You need to strengthen your body. So those are all simple. We all know these things. I just don't know if we realize that it is not practicing this on a daily basis is robbing us of our most valuable resource, that corporations are spending billions of dollars with the most incredible technology, especially now with AI and the algorithm that's meant to suck you in and keep you on the platform. So if these people are arming thousands of people and millions of computers to just capture your attention and keep you on their platform, why don't you value your attention? Like, why don't you value your mental energy? And like, you really think, like, I'm a regular person. I'm a regular man, I know that I'm not smarter than that machine. Right? Like, to think that I can use my willpower and discipline to outwit that machine, to me, that's a fool's errand. So I feel like there needs to be strong boundaries. Social media off, airplane mode, technological hygiene in that way.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's always leeching our attention as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's designed to be addictive, and that's not conspiracy, that's fact, right? It's interesting how, Gabor Mate,
Yeah.
musician, yeah, so he talks about how it's not a conspiracy when it's happening right in front of us. Like, this isn't some, like, oh, you're just looking at it differently. It's like, no, the companies themselves admit that they're designed to capture your attention and to not only capture it, but to never let go. So, they're designed to be addictive. So I like what you're saying, to just not try and have that war with the addictive device, but to say, I'm going to actually set it aside or put it on do not disturb or airplane mode or whatever.
Yeah, and because it's like, I think if you've been on the internet for more than 20 years, 30 years, we're still just getting used to the fact that it's algorithm driven. Like, it used to be who your friends are and who you're following, that is what you get. That's what you see. Now it's not that. It is they look at what you're interacting with and engaging with, and they keep feeding you other things that it thinks that you will stay on the platform for, so that all the ads that are making them even more money get your eyeballs, get your eyes and ears, so that someone else's agenda and someone else's profit. Like, business is a necessity. Like, it's an important part of life. Like, there's always a value exchange. There's problems, there's solutions, there's needs and there's people who can satisfy those needs with their products and services, and cool, awesome. But if you're not getting things done, if you're not present with your child, if you're distracted when you're supposed to be writing your first book, if you are collapsing and exhausted and you're trying to be of service with others from a low place, yeah, there's some things that you have to draw a line in the sand for. And those are like, remove the energy leaks and add some of the sources, like some of these practices and some of the environments, right? Like, there's certain people that'll fill you up, being in nature, being near water, certain books, certain types of music, there's going to be things that actually lift you up and energize you. And all of that is just so that, in the daily prosperity method is like, first let's expand your capacity, your energetic capacity, so that we can focus it on the hard thing that you're supposed to be doing today. The high value actions, priorities, and projects that actually demand your attention, that need your attention, that won't get done without you. The things that we've been avoiding, the things that actually have leverage and value built in. And we all know what those projects are. Like, if we just ask ourselves right now, what's the one project, what's the one priority that I've been avoiding the most lately? We know what it is. And if we had the energy and we can move that forward, we can get to the other side. We can get to the next problem. We can get to the next opportunity, and we can get that push, that momentum, So I think it's like, really, it's to serve that end.
Yeah, I like how you use the term fix the energy leaks and then focus on the energy sources, and looking at all of those same four walls and asking yourself, like, where are there leaks, and where is there room for me to pour more into myself? So what happens then when the client kind of fixes their energy leaks, and yet maybe they're still unsure on what their sources could be? Or is it that you encourage both to happen in tandem?
I think they just naturally happen together. Like, I just started working with somebody recently, and it was so interesting, right? Because she's like, I think I'm going to change careers. I've been doing this. I'm at the top of the country when it comes to this profession. I'm like the best at what I do. I have a waiting list of people, and it's exhausting me. I think I'm done with it, and I kind of hate it, like, resent it essentially. And we go through this process, and she messages me just the other day. She's just like, I love what I do. whoa, I actually I love my clients. I love what I get to do. I didn't realize that like there's all these things I needed to take care of, and it just would change my energy and change my perspective completely. And these boundaries, some of the natural byproducts were just like, it led to her having more respect for the value that she was delivering to her clients, to her customers, which led her to be, to have more kind of support to be able to say, this is my price now for this service. Which, like in some instances, it was like 43% increase in her prices.
Wow.
And it's like, oh, wow, you just increased your price 43%. She's like, whoa, I never thought of it that way. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, you just changed your whole practice. You just changed your whole thing, One of the beautiful aspects here is just like they all lead to the next thing, right? You fix the energy leaks, you add the energy sources, you start to have some distance, you get to see it from a different perspective, and you're like, oh, boundary here, boundary there, protect this, protect that. Just because you realize like how you've been betraying yourself, betraying your own values, betraying your own energy. And you start to create like ways of protecting it. And then from there, you start looking at the stuff that you couldn't see because you were so exhausted from all that other stuff. You're like, oh, like, wow, no, I'm really doing valuable work and I actually really enjoy doing this. I just need to make some tiny changes to make it work a little bit better, for me to be satisfied, for me to feel like I'm doing the most good with my gifts. And like now, actually, I love this. I can't even believe, I don't know where that hate went. That was only 5 weeks ago that like I had that feeling, and now it's completely gone.
Wow. Yeah. I think that when we're able to, like you're saying, fix the energy leaks, then we have a better sense of what is my mind and body telling me from a place of intuition rather than a place of fear or anxiety. And I think a lot of the time we struggle to discern what is my intuition and what is fear. Like, what is the part of me that's fearful telling me leave your job? And what is the part of me that's maybe intuitively saying you should leave your job? This isn't right for you. And addressing the leaks gives us the space to be able to identify where it's actually coming from.
That's a brilliant way to put it. Like I think we undervalue our intuition. I always look at it as we have three levels of intelligence. We have an intellectual intelligence, our mind, and we're so, sometimes we use our mind so much and we win by depending on our mind. So we see the value of it, but then we start to, at some point, as we neglect the intuitive intelligence.
Totally.
The feeling part, right? Or our instinctual intelligence, like that guttural part, those instinctual reactions, knowing what you need to do. But then like you said, if you're coming from a fear place, it could be like, just get me out of here, cut and run, fire all my clients, move, close the business. There's all these fear-based reactions when it's like, okay, wait, let's clear some of the noise and then see what you see. Like, oh, if I just tweak and change and do this and this and this, oh, wow, this is actually really pleasant. Like, this is actually really great.
Yeah. It's amazing how susceptible we all are to that, to jumping to let's throw everything away. Like, that happened to me a month ago. I recorded my first episode for this year, and I listened back to it, and my dad listened back to it because he helps me with the editing. And he was like, you sound kind of angry. I was like, do I? And I listened to it and I was pissed that he was right. And I was like, why do I sound like angry? Like it didn't sound like me. And in that moment, because I was in fear and I was annoyed, I just thought like, maybe I'll just stop this whole podcast thing. Like maybe I'll just throw it all away, because that was that perfectionistic part of me that couldn't bear to think that I created a subpar to shitty episode. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put it aside. I'm going to do it again. And it was great. But in that moment, I swear to God, I went right to, maybe I'll just give up on this whole thing. Like right to that.
We're so susceptible. Just like you said, I don't know what it is. Like one of the senses that I get around why we do that is because I think as human beings, we are obsessed with answers. And I really learned this, like one of the most important teachers through my training and my coaching is Werner Erhard, which I think he deserves a lot more credit than he gets. He's kind of relatively unknown, but he's made a profound difference. He's kind of like a grandfather of the world of personal development.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look him up.
Yeah. So one of the things that he really says, and like something that I really took to heart, was we are obsessed with answers. We want to get the answer. We want the fix. We want the solution. And then we think we have it. And then we close off. We're narrow. We close off. And we stop looking. And we are not good at sitting with the question. And when you sit with the question, not trying to look for an answer, but just keep being in the energy of the question, like not knowing, and just letting it unfold and open, you might have new questions come up. You might have new insights come up. You might have new angles and new directions come up that you couldn't if you thought, oh, this is the fix. Just quit, cut and run, stop the podcast, quit the job, sell the house, move houses, move countries. Like sometimes we think like that's the thing. I got to stop this and that, like so drastic. But if you just sit with it, kind of like what you were saying earlier, of just like our emotions are teachers. Let it teach you. Like, what are you trying to tell me? Instead of just being like, oh, that's what it is. Just be like, no, like, okay, and what does that mean? Like, where does that point? Like, what are you trying to point me to? Just sit with it. So I think that might be part of it, because it's countless how many times I thought like, I'm just going to quit coaching.
Right.
Like, screw this. No one cares, like this is not working right now. Give up, go on the job, go on LinkedIn, look for jobs. And I think we need to be, okay with like, this whole idea of just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Like don't believe everything you think.
Totally.
So just because you think like, oh, I need to quit my job, quit my business or whatever, it doesn't mean that's something that you need to do. It's just like you have thoughts. Your mind thinks. That's what it does. It's always generating thoughts all day. It doesn't always mean anything.
No, and whatever part is coming up telling you to run, it's trying to protect you from more hurt. And so, like what you're saying, we just need to be better at sitting in hurt and at sitting in distress. And we call that just maximizing our distress tolerance. So being more comfortable acknowledging that things aren't okay in order to move to a place where they are okay. Otherwise, we're just running. And then when we're running, we are totally acting out of fear and anxiety rather than tapping into what our intuition's actually trying to tell us.
Yeah. And you know what? It's risky. To live from your heart is risky.
It's very vulnerable.
It's dangerous. And so I totally get it. And I feel it. I mean, I've confronted it. Even with like writing the book was an intense endeavor, and it was very much like I'm just trusting my intuition on this. I just believe it so much, and I invested so much into making it the best that I think it could be. And like, yeah, it's dangerous. It was very uncomfortable. It cost a lot, in time and money and energy, and like there's a lot of things I had to say no to for a very long time to say yes to that. So listening to our intuition, yeah, it is dangerous. And if you're stepping into danger, parts of us are going to be triggered. Like I call it survival mechanism. There's a part of us that wants to stay safe and predictable and comfortable and familiar, even if it's a familiar misery. Yeah. The misery that is better than the one that you don't know.
Totally.
So yeah, I think we do need to do a way better job with kind of just being with it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it only really becomes like it's uncharted territory, right? But then it becomes actually emotionally dangerous when we're letting it run the show. Whatever voice is telling us we should give up, that's the danger of it. But actually taking the leap, like you writing that book, I mean, now, would you change that?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
No. I'm proud of myself knowing that I listened to my heart.
Right, exactly.
And that I was bold enough and brave enough to just keep going. Mm-hmm. In a very isolating process, right? Like, you don't get any validation, real validation, until the book is done. You don't know if it's going to do what it's supposed to do until it's done. So there's many months of just like, I think it sounds great. I think this is good. I think this is brilliant. Like, sometimes you think you're a genius. And then the next day you read it again. I'm like, I'm an idiot. Like, I am such a loser. Like, what was I thinking? I look at the first draft? I thought it was just like, wow, look at me. I thought it was so close to done. 16 months later, nope.
Yeah.
That first draft was not done.
So funny. I just had my friend who's a musician on the podcast as the earlier guest, and she said the same thing about writing music. She's like, I'll write a riff and be like, oh, this is perfect. And then the next day I'll be like, what on earth was this? Need to start over. And this leads right into my very last question that I'll ask to wrap up today, which is what's maybe one piece of advice that you think is the most important for listeners to keep in mind when they feel like they're playing it small, whether it's in their job or in their personal life, in any of those four walls?
It doesn't matter who you are. Like, I've worked with people who I would look at and be like, wow, I can't even believe I get the opportunity to work with this person. Mm-hmm. And I get to know them and remember, like, wow, like, why did I put them on such a pedestal? They're just a regular person. Like, and I know this. Like, I know this. We're all just people. And, like, they'll be like, I'm just playing so small. I'm just, like, settling. And it's very refreshing to kind of, like, have that awareness of just, like, we all are, and in certain areas and in certain ways, settling. Mm-hmm. And playing small and hiding. And that's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I think there just comes a time, a season in our life path where some of those things are meant to start to shine. Mm-hmm. They're meant to be shared, right? Like, we have gifts and they're meant to be given away, Mm-hmm. So the place that I always go to is, so I'll give you an example. This is the most, like, to me, this was monumental. My first 6 months of coaching, I was full-time. I just closed down a real estate investing company, which was making me miserable. And I found myself spiritually bankrupt, and I went through this whole transformational process. I talk about that right in the opening chapter of my book. Mm-hmm. And I spent the first 6 months so excited, so delighted to coach anybody, everybody for whatever price or nothing. I just wanted to just be in coaching sessions and just develop my skills. And then as my money ran out, because I was just running on savings, like, I wasn't making enough to support myself, I still had my real estate license, and I started to get drawn into the fear of, like, you got to do a couple of deals, you got to bring some money in, and then so for the 6 months right after that, I was chasing real estate deals. Let me go get a paycheck. Let me get a big check, a couple of checks, and then I'll go back to my gift, and then I'll go back to coaching. And I was also teaching yoga, So my life flipped where, full-time coaching, in my passion, in my gifts, so loving life. And then it flipped again to an old life of just like, oh my God, I'm here again. How am I here again? How am I doing this to myself again? Mm-hmm. Burnt out, miserable, driving everywhere, working with challenging clients in the real estate world, and just hating every moment of it. And then little doses, like little moments of just like coaching sessions, yoga. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I needed that. That was the source of energy for me. Mm-hmm. But it got to a point where, like, after 12 months, right? That's 6 months and then 6 months to 12 months. I was at a funeral of someone who was just older than me who helped me buy my first suit when I got into real estate. And he was a family friend, and he was like 28, I think it was, or 29 years old. And he didn't wake up from his sleep, didn't show up for work. He was engaged, had a heart condition, and it was so sad, for someone to die so young. And it's not like I was close to him, but it shook me, because I remember going to the visitation and just like, wow, like, what am I doing what if I died? What if this was my last year on this planet? What would I regret? And that really got me questioning, like, what if this was my last year? What would I regret? And, one of the things was, the main thing was to not fully step into my greatness, like not fully step into my gifts, which was coaching. And the thing that I recommend to people, like if you feel like you're playing small or you're settling and you feel like it's time for that part of you to shine, it's time for that part of you to be embodied, then I invite you to think about not just what it's costing you. Like, yeah, okay, what is it costing you to be small, to be hiding, to be settling? Okay, well, maybe it's costing me my joy, and it's robbing me of my satisfaction and fulfillment, and I just feel miserable, and I feel so bored, and I feel ungrateful, and I feel like my gifts are dying on the vine and things like this. Like, okay, that's like, I feel like that's a good place to start. But if you don't really feel the pain, you're just not going to make a move. Like, I had one client who went to a naturopath, and she said, Oliver, I got my hormone levels done, and my doctor said I have to take a leave of absence from my job. Like, she just said, like, you should not be working right now. Like, your hormones are completely off, you're burnt out, and all this stuff. And I said, interesting. So a week ago, if I asked you, how much pain were you in with your job, with your burnout, from 1 to 10, what would you say? She was like 6 out of 10. And I said, based on what your doctor tells you, what are you really? And she's like 12 out of 10. And I'm like, so we learn to tolerate our pain, to think it's a 6 out of 10 pain. But if you look at it objectively, maybe it's a 10 out of 10. Maybe it's a 12 out of 10. And what makes it a 12 out of 10 for me is like, what is it costing all the people around you for you to not be stepping up in this part of your life?
It's a great way to look at it, and a great reminder that putting yourself first is not selfish, that you're actually doing others a service too.
And the people that you don't even know yet. Like, I swear to you, that was in January. That was January 2014. And I was imagining all these people who will be worse off because I didn't step up. People who will not even realize that their life could have been transformed and impacted because I didn't step out of my comfort zone. Because I was too stuck playing small. That I was too afraid to shine my, to be seen, that I kept hiding. There's all these people that I'll fail to impact. And ultimately, it's like, think about, like, that was, how many years ago? That's 2014, so 11 years ago. 11 years ago, I wasn't thinking about a book yet. And now I'm like, wow, 11 years later, now I'm writing a book that is now helping people. Where I get messages all the time. People who come to my yoga classes who have read my book, or people who sign up to my coaching programs who've read my book and tell me the impact that it's had. It's just like, people who were strangers 11 years ago were the people I was thinking about. Here's all the people I won't be able to serve if I keep playing small. So not just what does it cost me, but what is it costing the people around you, and even the people down the road that you haven't even met yet, because you're too stuck and too afraid to just step out into the light a little bit. That's where I would go. I would go to the pain.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful to think about, that you're not only doing a disservice to yourself, you're doing a disservice to the people around you, but I think most importantly, you're doing the disservice to the people you haven't met, and or the people who you will never get to meet if you don't work on healing yourself. I think that's such a powerful way to look at it, because if you look at your life right now, and the fact that you've stepped into that authentic version of yourself, you wouldn't want to miss out on having all those relationships that you have right now. and you wouldn't have them had you not followed that path. So that's so beautiful.
I wouldn't have met you.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have met you. You would not have caught me at a breathwork class on a Friday night at 7 p.m. Even like 2 years ago. So, yeah.
And I think it's, it doesn't matter what we do with our lives. We're going to constantly be faced with doing difficult things, doing hard things every day. And it's a matter of just like some things, we can treat every day in a way where we're doing hard things and it's a building block towards the future that we are building in the direction that we want for ourselves. Or we can be doing hard things, these building blocks, headed in a direction where we don't want to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
It really is like every day you're going to have to wake up. You're going to have to add value somehow. You're going to have to do good somewhere. You're going to have to be of service in some way. You're going to have to use your gifts in some way. And so it's a matter of just like, okay, well, what am I building towards the direction that I want to be headed in or not?
Yeah.
And I think it's just kind of just like a conscious choice to make. And like what's going to catalyze us into action? Typically it's, in my experience, to really land and feel and integrate the sense of pain and the cost, not just to ourselves, not just to the immediate people around us, but also beyond. Because it's like if we believe that we can provide value and do good for more people with our gifts that are like in the future, they're still nameless and faceless people, that can trigger somebody to wake up and just make a tiny step in the direction of what's going to be living dangerously, like from your heart.
Yeah, I like that, living dangerously from your heart, because adding the from your heart cushions the danger from being like, have you heard the saying, like, if you're going through hell, keep going? And if the hell is of your own making and it's self-sabotage, that's not the hell you want to keep going through. But if the hell you're going through is like the isolation from writing your own book, but you're making something beautiful, that's the hell you want to keep going
through.
through.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really, oh my gosh. And I think we all go through hell, man.
Absolutely.
We all do. And so there's nothing like going through hell that makes us want to seek heaven. To just be like, okay, what's the upward trajectory? Like, what's the light that I want to aim towards? Where, how do I ascend now? What do I need to let go? I love the chrysalis loses 80% of its body mass before it becomes a butterfly. It's just so simple, but if you really think about it, you're like, wow, yeah, it can't be a butterfly if it weighs that much. It has to let go, has to digest itself. It's in that dark chrysalis digesting its physical being. How painful is that? But then it gets to become a colorful butterfly that brings joy,
I love that you brought that up, because that is like the perfect tie back into how the caterpillar has everything it needs inside of itself to become the butterfly. Same with the piece of marble, right? It's like it has everything it needs. Yes, there is this metamorphosis, but it comes from within.
That's poetry right there.
Love
That's
that.
so good. I love that so much. You're such a joy to be with.
Oh, thank you.
So much.
You too. Thank you. I'm so happy to have you here and so grateful that we were able to make this work and grateful that we met each other.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're enjoying the podcast, I invite you to participate in a Growth Zone challenge. I invite you to take a moment, a second, a gap in your day right now and share this episode with 2 other people. Thank you for minding the gaps with me. I'll see you next time on the journey out of our comfort zones and into our growth zones.